McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 4, Episode 4, The Gorrisby Hotel. October 19th, 1921. After my chat with Ariana, I returned to the haunted house, where all my magic unusual friends were hiding. For one thing, the skull spell that I'd cast on Ariana wouldn't pop information straight into my brain. The spell wrote the subject's teleportation location down on a piece of paper. Very handy, well-trained magic unusuals knew how to keep these pieces of paper on their person, so they could keep up the chase. I was not handy nor well-trained, so I had to go home. My notebook was lying under my pillow somewhere, or possibly behind a potted plant. Besides, I didn't know what the paper would say, or what the location would imply. I wanted to do some research before I followed. Of course, it would be a crying shame if Ariana had simply teleported to the corner store to buy some groceries, but I felt like, after a confrontation like that, she would want to return to some kind of home base. When I returned to the haunted house, Scotland just about smacked me on the ear. She was flying out of an upper room, with a bowl of bloody bandages in her hands, and she ran into me in the hallway. "Oh, so you did get back in one piece," she said. "Sorry," I said. "I had someone to talk to." Scotland gave me a dirty look. "Fine, I won't ask. I can feel something brewing within you, Ms. Melinda Merkel, but we all have our secrets, especially as young people. Did it go well, whatever it was? Are you all right?" "Very well," I said. "I'll tell you more later. Do you need any help?" I glanced down at the bloody bandages. "No," Scotland said. "You've done your bit. Go and rest now." "You don't look like you're resting," I said. "Darling, when I became a doctor, I knew I was giving up a good night's sleep forever. The whole world is falling apart at the seams, and I'm one of the few people who knows how to stitch flesh and blood back together again. I'll be all right. And I have more than enough assistance, so please, take your rest now. You've earned it." I nodded at Scotland, thanked her, and then went in search of my notebook. I had left it under my pillow, along with you, diary, and a few other key items. I found myself looking wistfully for my china eye, as though it would turn up after all, as though it wasn't inexplicably and ominously missing. But it was not concealed behind the folds of my pillowcase, so I stopped messing about and opened my magic unusual notebook, which Rupert had given me back when he started teaching me spells. Sure enough, the skull spell had worked, and it had cast a beautiful, luminous blue ink onto a blank page of my notebook. Surrounded by a strange Art Nouveau design, the words "The Gorrisby Hotel" filled the middle of the page. The Gorrisby Hotel. Diary, sometimes names give me the shivers. Sometimes I get goosebumps all the way up my arm. This name did something peculiar. It only gave me half a dose of goosebumps, but a whole dose of mad cat curiosity. I felt like an adolescent girl, suddenly overcome with a desire to explore a fabled haunted house. I sat back and thought hard. Ariana, if she had any sense, might have expected me to cast a skull spell. If that was true, this location was likely a sham, a stopping point before she went on to her real one. Then again, Ariana expected me to be a bit green and flighty. Perhaps she didn't think me capable of casting skull spells yet. Or perhaps she was so sure of her own magnificence, the power of her threat, that she hadn't dreamed I'd snub my nose at her and disobey her command so soon. "Go away and never come back," she'd said, and a second later I'd frolicked after her. So the Gorrisby Hotel could be a true location. I knew for a fact that the night enthusiasts didn't live in their cave, their meeting place. They didn't have the same network of community that we had in the pawn shop. The Gorrisby Hotel could be where Ariana was living and staying right now. If that was true, I might be able to wander into her room and pinch the magic jelly when she wasn't even there. I wanted to ask around right then and there to see if anyone had heard of the Gorrisby Hotel, but I decided against it. Scotland was right. I needed sleep. Besides, for the first time since the night enthusiasts had invaded our secret basement, we were all safe. Everyone, except for a few pawn shoppers who were out on the run, were here in the haunted house. No one was a prisoner of the night enthusiasts. For the first time since disaster had struck, we could all take a nap and know that everything was going to be fine. I journaled for what felt like 1,000 years, until my fingers were inky and tired, and I felt calm. It would have been impossible to fall asleep in broad daylight after the fear of everything that had just happened. But once I'd written it all down and gotten it out of my system, I felt light, soothed, like a cloud that had just cried out all her rain. I put my head down on my pillow and slept like a rock until the next morning. As soon as I was awake again, I got up and washed my face, said good morning to the other magic unusuals, and was handed a plate of boiled cabbage. I'm not sure why we were having boiled cabbage for breakfast, but it wasn't really my job to complain, so I ate it. Then I went straight to the upper room, where Wrath and Mr. McGillicuddy were resting. When I arrived, the room was filled with sunlight, and one of the older women sat between both beds, tranquilly reading a book. Mr. McGillicuddy and Wrath were both asleep, tucked into pristinely white sheets. The older woman put her finger to her lips when I entered, so I tiptoed up to the beds. Wrath was sound asleep and snoring. I was shocked to see that Scotland, somehow, had humanized Wrath's puppet eye a little bit. She'd trimmed those ugly, feathery lashes, and she'd scrubbed the bright paint off the lid. It was now a plain wooden eye with lashes the length of his real ones. I knew it would still be horrible, perhaps even more so, when he opened his eyes and the wooden eye continued to rattle around. But for now it was nice to see him snoozing, and to see him look more like Hester than like Wrath. His skin was clean and bandaged all over. I felt deeply encouraged by the sight of Wrath cared for and tucked in. Mr. McGillicuddy was likewise asleep, but more fitfully. I worried about him. When he had been taken prisoner by the night enthusiasts, he had just returned from a mission. He had been investigating ways to cure Wrath once and for all, if such a thing were possible. I wondered if he would wake up soon and tell us what he'd learned, assuming he had learned anything at all. "Has he woken up yet?" I whispered to the nurse. "Since we brought him back." She shook her head, then smiled at me in a way that was both encouraging and pitying. I wondered what would happen if Mr. McGillicuddy never woke back up again. I left the sick room, and I went in search of someone who could tell me more about the Gorrisby Hotel. As I crept down a narrow back staircase, the walls covered in black and blue flowered wallpaper, I ran into a ghost. At first I thought my eyes were just getting blurry, because a long, long stem of pale blue light was rising out of the wooden step in front of me. Then my skin began to get cold. Then the sunlight seemed to fade, and time seemed to slow down, and suddenly I was face to face with a turquoise phantom with fingers as long as rulers. I think the ghost was feeling mean, and had decided to come up through the floor fingers first, because he knew that would be the creepiest. "You must return us to our bodies, Melinda Merkel," the ghost said. I rubbed the goosebumps off my arms and stamped my foot. "Not now," I said. "Our bodies." "And what are your bodies?" I said. "Where are your bodies? Do you have any idea how many things I'm investigating right now? Please leave us alone for now, and for heaven's sake, don't try anything in the middle of the night, but I promise I will get to you when I have time." "You must return us," the ghost said. "You must find our bodies yourself. We cannot tell you the secret of our fleshly forms." "Just no," I said. "No, I don't have time for you right now. I know you're connected to everything else. I can feel it. I know that you're somehow inexplicably connected to the Whiskalets and the night enthusiasts and Wrath and this whole adventure. But right now, you seem like some perfectly illogical and overdone ghosts, and the next thing on my to-do list is rescuing Noble James from a cave full of insane bird creatures in plague masks, and I hope this doesn't hurt your feelings, but they are much scarier than you are." "I am not meant to be scary," the ghost said. And with that, he disappeared. Well, maybe I defended it. At any rate, it was gone for now. The good news was, the ghosts appeared to only want to talk to me. They hadn't shown up for anyone else yet. They'd stayed out of the soup pots and everything. The bad news was, the ghosts only wanted to talk to me. I was going to sleep with a pillow over my head, surrounded by other people, lest they invite themselves in for a chat at 3 o'clock in the morning. Still shuddering from my ghost encounter, but still feeling right about my decision to ignore them for now, I made my way to the front hall, where I ran into Matthew John. "Maud!" Matthew John cried. He stepped right up to me and hugged me. Matthew John was the size of a grizzly bear, yet gave very gentle hugs. "Are you all right? Rupert gave us the most amazing account of your adventures rescuing Wrath and Mr. McGillicuddy. Did you get a good sleep? You must be exhausted." "I slept beautifully, thank you," I said. Suddenly, I squinted at him. "Matthew John, I'm in need of some information. Do you know things? How long have you been a Magic Unusual?" "Oh, I've known I was a Magic Unusual since the age of 9, Matthew John said. "It's why I'm so cheerful." I grinned. "Well, excellent. I am in need of an expert. I'll spare you the details, but I need to go after one of the night enthusiasts. Not to fight them with a spear or anything. I just need to pinch something and then come back. It won't take long, and it shouldn't be dangerous, but, I cast a skull spell, and the location I got was the Gorrisby Hotel." "The Gorrisby Hotel," Matthew John said. He wrinkled his nose. "I know the place. Have you ever passed it? It's on Ashland, tucked behind some of the taller buildings. It's grey, dark, sooty, almost a purpley kind of grey, like a bruise, if you pass it at twilight. It's crumbling, and some of the windows are shuttered, and it's covered in purple ivy, but believe it or not, it is still open for business. Or so the sign says. It's always given me the creeps. Apparently, a serial killer was born there about 50 years ago. It used to be a hospital, but it was shut down because the doctors were caught operating on people who didn't need to be operated on, just to make money." How horrible! For some reason, I felt like a dark presence stood behind me and whispered into my ear, "Death to all mice." "That's all I know about the Gorrisby Hotel, Maud. I'm sorry," Matthew John said. "That's a lot, Matthew John," I said. "I feel like I just popped open an encyclopedia." Matthew John seemed pleased. "Are you going now?" he said. "Do you want anyone to come with you?" I paused. "No, I think I've got to go alone. The idea is to be sneaky and get in and out without being noticed by anyone. The fewer the better." "Oh," Matthew John said, "I can disguise you." I perked up. "Really? That would be a huge help. Is that your Magic Unusual power? Being able to disguise people?" "No," Matthew John said, "just my talent. I work in the theatre." "Not the same one as Don Mamungus," I said. "No," Matthew John said. "I'm not that lucky." "Matthew John," I said. "She might be a terrible person, Maud," Matthew John said, "but she is a brilliant performer. She gives me chills." "She won't be performing any time soon," I said. "She's still locked away in our Magic Unusual prison." Matthew John shook his head and sighed. "I don't understand why theatre wasn't enough for her." With that, Matthew John pulled me by the hand over to a chair. Half an hour later, he had given me a different face. He'd taken his makeup box, fitted me with an auburn wig, changed my eyebrows, changed the shape of my nose with a bit of putty, and changed the shape of my face with some kind of supernatural makeup trick. "Golly!" I cried. When he showed me my own face in the mirror, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I was breathtaking. I didn't look like Maud anymore, but I looked like a real person. I would have passed myself by on a train platform without a second glance. "Matthew John, I feel like Sherlock Holmes." "Do you like it?" Matthew John said, thrilled. "You should be teaching people this," I cried. "We could have a whole team of disguise artists to prepare people before missions." It then occurred to me that the Magic Unusuals could be just as powerful as the night enthusiasts, perhaps, if we could only get ourselves better organized. "No one ever really asked me before," Matthew John said sheepishly. "Just remember not to scratch your face, and you should be all set." "I'm off," I said. I jumped up out of the chair. I should be back within half an hour, unless something goes wrong. Send someone after me in about 2 hours if I still haven't returned. To the Gorrisby Hotel, Matthew John said. Yes, indeed, I said. Good luck, Maud, Matthew John said, and bless you for your energy and enthusiasm. I wasn't aware that I had extra amounts of energy and enthusiasm, I said. I was aware that you did. That's what you bright souls always say, Matthew John said. Get back safely. With that, I stepped into a private corner and drew an eye symbol that would take me straight to 1921, on Ashland Road. From there, it would only be a short walk to the Gorrisby Hotel. When I arrived, it was chilly. The wind was wet and chattering, and leaves tumbled past. For a moment, I almost turned up my collar to avoid nasty stares from passers-by, when I realized I didn't look anything like Melinda Merkel, the murderess. I was free to stroll around in 1921 again, and I was suddenly overcome by an urge to go to the park. I decided to walk north first, to see what I could see, and within 10 minutes I had found the Gorrisby Hotel. Matthew John was right. It was a miserable building, like someone had painted it with drab colours on purpose, to make it more at home with Halloween. It seemed quiet and shrunken on the busy street, like it was sucking all the energy into itself. Since I had never been inside, I couldn't teleport straight in, so I walked up the crumbling walk and pushed open the rotting front door. The smell of mould hit my nose. I looked around. The front room did have a desk for a hotel concierge, but no one was there. The bell had a spider web on it, and brown spots from the ceiling had since dripped onto an open book and dried, so it was clear no one sat at this desk very often. The building, however, didn't feel deserted. I could smell coffee, hear a radio going, as well as conversations and creaking floors. Since no one had greeted my entrance, this was my chance to whisk upstairs. The last thing I needed was to talk to someone who questioned my being here. No one would believe me if I said I wanted a room. I needed to get in and get out. Just as I was about to trundle up the steps, someone came down. I panicked, and I whisked myself into the front desk and hid behind the counter. I bumped noses with a cobweb, scratched my nose furiously, and prayed I didn't sneeze. A male voice shouted at the foot of the stairs. That's why we should be working on this now, I tell you. We have some of Mr. McGillicuddy's blood. That means I can track him to anywhere on the planet, no matter what year they're hiding in. Diary. I dare say I was eavesdropping on Raster himself. We hope you've enjoyed Season 4, Episode 4, The Gorrisby Hotel, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren, all rights reserved. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and visit minervasweeneywren.com for more. The most impactful way to support McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is to simply follow Minerva Sweeney Wren at Meg Macaulay Inc. on Instagram and Twitter. Please consider giving $1 a month at patreon.com/SweeneyWren to unlock the upcoming mystery, The Dark and Decrepit Planet of Spin. All links are in the description of this episode. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue in 2 weeks with Season 4, Episode 5, Vials of Blood That Glow in the Dark.